Broadcasting from Studio 202 at the Springett Technology Center in Navasota, Texas. It's NOV Live. Now, here's your host, Michael Gaines.
Hello and welcome to NOV Live. I'm Michael Gaines and glad you are joining us as we take a moment to dive into another conversation, bringing you technical experts and perspectives from around the world and those helping impact the world of energy. So today we have the opportunity to talk about developments in the offshore oil processing market. And so we've got a guest that is joining us, and we'll get to that in just one moment. So before we do that, want to bring in Shelby Dumaine to talk about, of course, our ways that you can participate, and what I enjoy, of course, also is our Rig Geek Post of the Week. So Shelby, good to see you today.
Great to see you as well, Michael. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in, whether you're watching on LinkedIn, Facebook, or YouTube. We welcome you to the live stream today. And as Michael mentioned, I want to invite you to get involved and participate and be part of the show. And the best way you can do that is by commenting any questions you have for our guest today in the comments below. Again, regardless of where you're watching from, go ahead and comment below. And at the end of the show, we're going to do a live Q&A. So you'll have kind of the opportunity for your questions to be asked to our guest. So I really look forward to seeing. If you want to do a little practice real quick, you're welcome to let us know where you're watching from. I know that's always one of my favorite parts of the show, is to see where everybody's tuning in from. You know, we get people all over the world. I see Houston, I see Venezuela, so Argentina. So thank you. Welcome to everybody. And if you have any questions after the show, if you still want to get involved or reach out to us, or maybe even suggest a future topic that you want to hear from NOV, you can do so by emailing us at socialmedia@nov.com. So that email will be on screen, but that is socialmedia@nov.com. And you can also, of course, binge watch or watch any past episodes of the show at nov.com/live. That will also be on the screen. That's nov.com/live to see any of our past episodes. And so those are all the different ways you can get involved. But for today, the easiest thing you can remember is just commenting below with any questions you have. And that's how you ask us your question. But as Michael mentioned, now it's time for the part of the show where I ask you my question. It's time for the Rig Geek Post of the Week.
Rig Geek's Post of the Week.
All right, and this week we're talking about the Wellstream Processing Group. So I want to ask you, in what year did the Wellstream Processing Group originate? It might have gone by a different name maybe then, that might be a little clue, but what year do you think the Wellstream Processing Group originated? You can go ahead and put your guesses in the comments, and at the end of the show, we're going to reveal that answer. So look forward to seeing you then.
All right, thanks, Shelby. So, as we've talked about, our conversation today is going to be revolving around the developments in the offshore oil processing market. And we have the opportunity to bring in our guest, our expert, all the way from Norway. We have Rune Fantoft, who's the Senior VP of Wellstream Processing. So, Rune, thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you for having the chance to be here.
So, Rune, I know that you and the team and the Wellstream Processing Group have a broad expertise and work in many areas. I know that one of the areas that you focus on is the offshore oil and gas space. And so wanted to see if you could give those that may not be as familiar some insight and perspective on some of your team's focus and what you all are doing in the Wellstream processing space overall.
Sure. So as the name says, Wellstream Processing has the main focus is about how to separate and treat whatever is coming up as part of oil and gas production. So there's oil, gas, water, and sand coming up from the reservoir, and we provide the technology that is required to make the separate phases that can be exported or re-injected or discharged, so basically what is required in order to produce oil and gas as part of an offshore production system. And can also be an onshore, like around 50% of what we do is offshore. That's a big, large project we often see. Onshore is a little bit different, but it's very much the same technologies when it comes to processing. So, and then we also deliver equipment for processing, like for instance, seawater treatment. Seawater is used to enhance oil recovery. That's the other things that we do. So everything related to oil and gas production. I think a week or so, 2 ago, like we also were having one of my colleagues and talking about carbon capture and things like that. So we're also expanding this because there's a lot of new technology or same technologies applied for upstream oil and gas processing for other kind of energy. So that's also a focus area that we have at this point in time. But today, I think we're going to focus probably our largest and most significant part of our business, which is the offshore production system.
Right. Yeah. And so maybe we can dive in there a little bit. So when you are looking at the offshore space and specifically in the processing market, I know that anyone that's paid attention to the headlines has seen that there's been a lot of volatility in terms of prices in the oil and gas market being fairly high at different points, and still a lot of uncertainty, especially if you're looking at overlaying that with COVID restrictions and things like that. So how do you see the market responding and developing in light of some of these events?
There's for sure very large variations in expectations, like a little bit dependent on which parts of the world, which time of the day, and that you're looking at. But in general, we are very optimistic about the offshore oil and gas production market. First of all, like going 6-7 years back, that's when the oil price started to reduce. Prior to that, there was a huge amount of investment in the market. Since then, there's been much less investment, and then like the market was really coming back. We got a lot of orders just before COVID-19 came to the world 1.5 year to 2 years ago, and that has really hit the amount of investments that has been initiated. A lot of projects that was expected to be kicked off then and was postponed. So we see a lot of activity now shaping up. The pipeline of activity is larger than it's probably been for decades, probably maybe ever, like at least for our business. Some parts of the world is not that active. Some parts of the world is already very active, especially Brazil is a country that has most of the activities on new build project for offshore these days. Looking at onshore, there's especially places in the Middle East. So it's a little bit narrow, but the market is really shaping up. We see places like North Sea is coming, Southeast Asia, Australia, the projects. So it's all over the place, and so we're very optimistic about the market. But the market is very different than before. Before COVID, before the drop in the oil price. The capacity, there's much less capacity in the market. There are very special things that are happening over a short period of time when you're planning projects, like material prices, very large individual differences, very large variations, transportation costs that when like over a short period of time they can go up and down quite a lot. So it's a much more challenging to execute projects today than it probably been, but at the same time there's so many opportunities, and we really see that this oil and gas market, maybe especially the large field oil and gas market that we often see offshore, is really coming back, and it's very exciting.
Right. Yeah. No, I'd imagine so. And one of the things that I think about, especially as you were talking through the technology, that's certainly one of the key drivers that you and the team are able to provide. But in addition to providing that core offering, I know that one of the things that I'm sure you are mindful of and thinking is supporting the customers in both the front end and the back end of the operations and providing those solutions. So can you talk a little bit about how you think about that and how you and the team are able to support customers and those end users who are able to adopt the technology that you and others are able to provide?
First of all, I think to be able to plan project in the right way is very important today, and probably more important today than before. And as complexity of a global operation is very important. Like some of the projects that we are engaged in, like we are doing projects in Brazil, but a large part of the project being handled in Asia. That kind of combination is very important. And then with the complexity of operating in a COVID world or a post-COVID world that we hopefully will be, it's challenging. I think that's one of the advantages that we as NOV with the global operations, we are strong locally at the places where we need to be. At the same time, we are spread out and have team. For instance, like during COVID-19, we executed a project for CNOOC in China, but executed from Oslo as the technology center. Even when we were not allowed to travel, when we're not allowed to visit sites, not allowed to visit suppliers, one of our strengths in this kind of uncertain world as NOV is the infrastructure we have. So I'm not going to say what our competitors can do, but with the limitations that many have, it's difficult to achieve what we did with only handling all the activities we did locally without any traveling. We were still able to meet the delivery times and expectations of the customers. That I think that's one of the elements, and also that we see in many of the active regions offshore today is local content is important. So establish local capabilities in the countries that are producing the oil and gas is important. So these are all infrastructure things. Managing global supply chain and being present locally where the customer is very important. Mm-hmm. And then to the technology, but like also having the strength and the size to have technology expertise at a certain level, although we might have a super expert in Europe somewhere or in the Middle East in a certain field, but we have expertise spread out so we can talk to the customer and represent our technology well. So finding the optimal solution. So I think that this is one of the strength, like we're local companies around the world, but with a global strength that we can work together and achieve things that is very attractive for our customers.
So if you're just joining us online, we're speaking with Rune Fantoft, who is the Senior VP for Wellstream Processing. And our conversation today is revolving around developments in the offshore oil processing market. So if you have any questions for Rune, please feel free to put those in the comment section, whether you are watching us on LinkedIn, Facebook, or YouTube, and we'll try to get to as many of those questions before the end of our broadcast here in our Q&A segment. So Rune, I want to turn back to you. I know that there are distinct differences between the onshore production space and offshore. And of course, right now we're mainly talking about offshore today, but could you maybe just take a brief moment to maybe share with our viewers some of the key differences that you're seeing in terms of the market development for those two spaces? How are you viewing the contrast and maybe similarities?
Definitely a bunch of similarities. When it comes to process equipment, the advantage or the difference between onshore and offshore is limited because what we are doing is happening inside the equipment, like we're treating the fluids. But when that's said, there's of course technical differences like things like space and weight, how to put things together as a module, things like that is very important on an offshore project. That's why we also have the projects that we are engaged in, the largest order values that we get are very often on an offshore project because that's putting everything together as one module. But we also deliver equipment and things like that to put in like that are integrated into a larger production system offshore. Onshore is more like certain other requirements, often technologies that are not necessarily driven by being compact is not as important. So sometimes conserved, like more conventional or traditional process equipment is often used onshore, but at the same time, more and more technology is adapting into onshore as more processing is required, for instance, on water treatment, like the one instead of just finding ways to dump the water somewhere, like the water may be used for something, and then you have new requirements for the water. So technology is also still very important. Very often, like, there are difficult operating conditions that are making trouble for both the onshore and offshore processing systems. So the similarities is definitely there. Things like being able to execute projects with capabilities locally where the customers are is very important. Like some of the largest projects we do, I mentioned already Brazil, doing local content, fabricating in Brazil, doing project activities in Brazil, doing procurement with Brazilian suppliers. Very important for a project where really in reality the owner of the oil is the Brazilian country. So adding value to the country is very important. We see the same as some of the biggest onshore project we do is for instance in Saudi Arabia, like probably the largest customer we have in the onshore space. Doing fabrication in Saudi Arabia is something that we do, something that we differentiate from our competitors, that being able to do that ourselves in the country. I think that these are the kind of, like, very much the similarities, but there are certain fundamentals when it comes to technology, especially driven by the limited size and space that you have on offshore, and also the project execution that you often put together the whole system at a yard and then transport it to where you're going to be offshore, versus being put together at the site when it comes to onshore.
So my last question for you, Rune, I noticed on your back wall that you prominently have NOV's 3 pillars that we drive and share with all of our employees, and of course, I know that everything that we do drives up to those 3 statements, but I wanted to maybe get your perspective as we're talking about the offshore oil processing market and dive into purposeful innovation, and specifically about technology offerings that maybe you're excited about that are coming for our customers, or just technology offerings in general that you're excited about that are going to be able to increase the value add that you spoke of for our customers. What are some of those things that are top of mind for you?
No, I think and very much the oil and gas production system is driven by, like, it's fairly conservative in the approach. Like, it's fairly hard to get in new technology, but at the same time we take big technology steps on system integration, on applying more digital solution and all that kind of things. But what we have focused a lot on the last few years is on the separation technology, where there is big opportunities to improve separation, to increase capacity or solve problems in terms of separation, and in some cases even be able to replace 2 separators with 1. And that's a large part of the offshore production system, and onshore production system is related to the separation vessels that are normally very large. So what you see here on an animation is what we call the EPAC, which is the electrostatic coalescer that they put into a main separator. It's a very efficient brownfield tool because you can just replace the internals of a separator, and then you have a completely different capacity and performance of a separator. Or it is a very important greenfield tool that can either make the whole production system more compact, or you can increase the capacity of a given setup. So this is something that we are very proud of. We have introduced it to the market over the last couple of years. We are installing the first one. Equinor has been a good customer. They bought one or a couple for the Johan Sverdrup field in the North Sea, which is a really important showcase for us. And there's another one as part of a new development that is happening a tie-in field to the Grane field at Breidablikk in Norway. So we're very proud of getting a technology out in the market. We think that this can be a very important tool, both to new build offshore system or retrofitting offshore system to make them work better. And the same thing with the onshore, because this is equally applicable offshore and onshore. So we're very excited about that. Our focus is really to try to find those small steps that could make big steps for our customer. Very much of the technology is already known for us, but it's putting together and in a context that make a big difference. So this is something that we're very happy about, and we're excited to see more opportunities coming in the near future.
Well, I appreciate you sharing those perspectives and giving us an opportunity to to hear more about what the Wellstream Processing team is doing. And I think now we're going to give an opportunity to our audience to get some of their questions answered. So Shelby, I think we've got a few questions on deck for Rune.
Yeah, we sure do. This first question comes from Larry on LinkedIn, and he was wondering, what are you finding is the biggest challenge in developing the process intelligence manager for operators and midstream partners?
Process intelligence manager. I don't think I talked specifically about it, so I'm not really 100% sure about what it means. Like what I find most difficult to develop the process intelligence manager. That was the question?
Yes, although we could maybe broaden and just say, you know, what maybe our general biggest challenges that we face when we're developing something new in the space.
No, I think the process intelligence manager, as far as I read the question, is related to digital solutions and adding intelligence into the system. So I'm just trying to understand the question properly and apologize if I miss. But I think we are working a lot on that field in terms of digital solution, remote operation. Like we are not an operator. We work with the operator. We provide operators tools to make them separate or treat fluids better. So we have a lot of instrumentation. We have a lot of models. We have a lot of tools. So we work together with operators. We work together with digital infrastructure companies, like they're providing the overall control system on the platform, for instance, or FPSO. And we provide intelligence. We have a lot of models. We know how our seawater treatment equipment works. We know how our separator works. So our contribution into this context is how to actually transfer the knowledge that we have within our expert that can both know how to operate things, but also how to identify problems and opportunities, and how to make that a digital solutions that actually can operate without our expertise. A lot of the equipment is self-operating, and some really needs expert support. And what we're doing more and more together with operators is how to actually make a lot of this processes digital, and also using a digital solution to provide information to our experts so they can support our operators even more. So I think our contribution into this is like we are process experts. We're experts on how to make the products and technology. And how are we contributing into this is that provide expertise in that together with the operators that have other expertise, and together we work to find the right solutions.
Yeah, that's excellent. Thank you. I might have read the question kind of funky at first, so I appreciate you. Still got some great information. I knew you would. And so this last question we'll do also comes from LinkedIn. Has ESG started to change how you're handling Wellstream processing, and does it open up any opportunities?
Oh, definitely a big opportunity. A lot of the expertise we have is related to how to treat fluids, both thermodynamically, chemically. And from a fluid dynamic perspective, that's really the fundamentals of the process. And it's the same principles when you go into carbon capture. Like we deliver multiple CO2 separation systems, very similar to carbon capture CO2 separation systems, but with natural gas together with CO2 instead of a flue gas. Same technologies, same opportunity. Probably require more standardization and cost drive in order to make the carbon capture part attractive. We are spending a lot of activities into carbon utilization. So when you have CO2 that is picked up from somewhere, when some kind of industrial process, what to do with it. A lot of the chemistry related to handling CO2 and for utilization is same chemistry as we see in applications we do in the upstream oil and gas. So we really have the focus on leveraging our process expertise, but maybe even more importantly, and that's something that a lot of companies forget, is that for carbon capture, for hydrogen processing, for anything related to that kind of new areas, cost is going to be important. The challenge for if you look at oil and gas production, one of where our industry has been spoiled for many years has been that the oil has a high value. so that no matter what, like it will always be a positive economical scenario for the owners related to oil and gas production, while as we're going to add new technologies in like energy transition technologies or carbon capture and things like that, it's going to be a cost. And it's going to be a less attractive financial scenario in many cases. And how we can drive cost. We have a global supply chain. We are fabricating things in low-cost country. We have detail engineering that we're doing very efficiently at the right place in the world. At the same time, we are all over the world and we can support projects globally. So one of our contributions is like the process expertise and how to apply that in a new market, industrial market but the second one is how to contribute to drive down the costs so that this kind of technology can be applied fully. So this is a very big focus for us right now. It's going to take some time before the market picks up. It's going to be challenged by the fact that now after COVID, I'm sure that there's going to be a lot of investment in more traditional energy markets. But we are there to support both. We think there's going to be a perfect balance between various type of energy sources or energy transportation or utilization methods, and we are there to support solutions, provide expertise, and provide equipment and systems to support all these kind of different application areas.
That's great, Rune. Thank you so much for answering our audience's questions. And if you have any other questions, feel free to put them in the comments. And we're going to, after the show, we still look at the comments and we'll try to get as many answered as we can. Or, of course, later on, if you think of something, you can also email us at socialmedia@nov.com. But before I hand it back over to Michael, I do want to go ahead and answer our Rig Geek post of the week. We'll have that question one more time, so you have a few more seconds to get any last-minute guesses if you'd like to. So we asked, when did the Wellstream Processing Group originate? And I think I saw some good guesses out there, and I hear a drum roll from our production team. So the answer is 1978. So had some kind of in the 70s. That's where we started.
There it is. So maybe Rune, you can send a picture of you from 1978. How about that?
It sure exists.
I'm sure it exists. Absolutely. Well, good. Well, thanks, Shelby. Appreciate that. Rune, thank you for joining us today and sharing your insight. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
So from all of us here at NOV, thank you for joining us. I'm Michael Gaines. Shelby Domain is our social media specialist. Paul Dufio and Weihan Lin are our production team. And Rune Fantoft was our guest joining us from Norway, talking about the developments in offshore oil processing market. And he's the Senior VP of Wellstream Processing. So on behalf of all of us here at NOV, thank you for watching and for listening. And we'll talk to you again next time.